All right. I am here with my dear friend, Dani Klein. We've been trying to get this on the books for weeks and weeks, but she's a very busy lady, as she should be. Dani is the founder and CEO of Laughter on Call. I'm going to let her tell you what that is and how it came to be. But I have known Dani for almost 20 years. And Laughter on Call is now how many years old? 2, 3.
Great. Yeah.
So I've been there since the beginning, watching it develop and become what it has become, which is incredibly impressive and very forward thinking. So let's get into it. Dani, welcome to my Q&A.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Lisa. Thank you. It's wonderful to be here.
I don't have theme music yet. So I'm working on that. I feel like we need a lead in like jazzy. Right. That works.
Yeah, ladies of business.
Tell us, please. Don't tell me because I already know, but tell us how Laughter on Call came to be.
Well, it is really funny because Lisa, you have been there since one of those early entrepreneur meetings,
right?
Where I was like, I don't know, really, and everybody was like at the edge of their chair saying, "You better do this."
Right.
So essentially, it started in the senior space for Alzheimer's. My mother had been had become depressed, diagnosed with an Alzheimer's diagnosis, and I had relocated her here from New York City. We both live in Los Angeles, obviously. And she became depressed and I felt really, really guilty about it. And I was at my dentist, and of course, because it's LA, she's also like a life coach. And she's like, always telling me what to do when my mouth is full of cotton. I'm like, all right. But this time I was crying and like she wasn't drilling. So it was like not good. And I said, my mother, I feel so guilty. I moved her here and I just wish I could do something to cheer her up. I wish I could hire a comedian to cheer her up. And she was like, oh my God, you should do that. That's a great idea. Why don't you do that? Mm-hmm. So I was like, all right. So I posted on Facebook looking for comedian interested in gerontology paid gig. And then of course, my phone rang, not of course, but my phone rang like 5 minutes later. And it was a friend of mine in New York who said, I know someone in LA who wants to work with seniors. She's like sitting on park benches. You should call her. So I called this woman, she came over and she did instinctively what we essentially also train now, which is, to really see the person and to get at eye level. And, and she had a New York accent, which was very familiar to my mother. And she said, I know you don't want to talk to me. No, you're probably thinking, who is this schmuck just talking to me? And there was something about the word schmuck that like really lit my mother up. And then she said schmuck and they had like a schmuck off and it was like laughter. And I hadn't seen that in months. So I hired her on the spot. I was like, okay, come 8 hours a week, make your own schedule. Anyway, long story short, or short story short, like within weeks, my mother was laughing and joining in her community and singing and eating again. And even when the comedian wasn't there. And so I was like, oh my God, this should be everywhere. Like there's always comedians that need work. Yeah. And there's a ever ending population of people in cognitive decline. Like this, it seems like such a natural. So I wrote an article about the experience for AARP magazine and I got hundreds of responses. So please bring me a comedian in Pittsburgh and Texas and Iowa. Everybody wanted to. So, and simultaneously Time magazine had a dedicated issue called The Science of Laughter. It was all about what it said, the science of laughter. And I had a friend whose mother had been diagnosed with Alzheimer's and who had a foundation where she liked to support good causes. So she invited me to come in and pitch to her people. And so I walked in with, this is funny because I think that people on podcasts will appreciate a Venn diagram, which I don't know how I knew even to do that. Like I truly, it must have been like generational, like a previous generation.
Right.
In the shtetl, I must have been. I just made this Venn diagram and I was like, okay, well, what would it take for the business to be successful? It would need people with Alzheimer's, comedians and money because it was going to be private pay. So I made my circles, and then in the middle, was all the communities where it would be most successful. And it was interesting. It was like Minnesota and places I hadn't anticipated, and then all the obvious LA, New York.
I want to stop you for a second because this is actually the first time I've heard this clip of this story. And in fact, I love it so much as a rubric for how to break your business down. And so when you said, what would I need for my business to be successful? Right. And you said there were 3 things. What were the 3 things? Comedians,
access to comedians,
right.
People with Alzheimer's, and money. Like they had to be wealthy communities because it was going to be private pay.
So I'm going to put that down and put that aside. And I want to ruminate on that, on how to convey that, because do you think that every business could potentially be broken down into 3 components?
Well, we're in the middle. It's interesting because the Venn diagram has come back. I mean, I think my answer is yes, okay. But it really depends. What do you want the middle to illustrate?
Right.
Like I just did another Venn diagram that I love now because it distinguishes Laughter on Call as the only company in the center. So, it's training, entertainment, and mental wellness.
Wow.
Corporate training, corporate mental health, and entertainment.
Right.
And then when you do those 3 circles, we're the only company that lives in the middle, because there's Second City and there's Calm. There's a bunch of different companies that address those circles. Yeah. But nobody does what we do. And it's really, really impressive. I mean, it tells a story right there. It's 3 circles with some logos, and just looking at it, it tells a story. And that's what I like.
I mean, I knew that we'd have a cool conversation, but I didn't actually anticipate that I would be illuminated into what I need to do now, especially in relationship to my nonprofit. But what's a great tool, and what's something that you hit on almost accidentally, is how do you eliminate all the competition from the center circle? Like there are other swim schools that do similar things that I do. There are other nonprofits that do similar things. There's other ... But how do you keep distilling down until you're the only one in the center?
Well, right. I mean, within reason, right? You can't make, we also fly, children. It has to be based. You have to be able to deliver what you're saying. Right.
But the goal is you want to create the niche that identifies you as completely unique in whatever that way is.
Yeah, because every pitch deck, every pitch deck format says, how are you distinct from the competition? How do you distinguish? What's your competitive edge? They all use that. It's a lot of sports metaphors. It's a lot of that.
Right. Which I actually want to touch on a little bit about, asking for seed money and pitch decks. But before we get to that, just, because you started in the Alzheimer's.
Right. So I should catch you up to so I walked into that meeting and I walked out with a nice chunk of money, which I don't want to say because I don't want to, pay the investor, but and with basically, seed money to start. That was an angel round. That's what they call the angel round, because she was an angel. She is an angel too. Yeah. And so then, but interestingly, another point that your people might be interested in is her financial person walked me out and said, look, this is a great idea and you need to be first to market because everyone's going to copy this and you need to be, essentially the McDonald's, And so I would say half, and I'm not sure, I don't regret this. Half of the money went to a medical PR firm, not a Hollywood PR firm, but a PR firm in the healthcare space that could really introduce the company to senior healthcare.
Okay.
And so
Interesting. Yeah.
that's that. And then, of course, March 2020, we all know what happened. Like we had built a business. I was training. I very quickly was asked to train healthcare workers.
Yeah.
And I had taught at UCLA for 10 years and written a couple books on laughter and family life. And so that was not hard for me to come up with. So I started training. So, but everything was in person, obviously. Who even thought that we'd ever be doing this
Yeah, right.
at the time? And so I was doing all that. And then March 20th. And of course, our clientele was on the do not disturb list first, like do not go to seniors. So March 16th, it was like, no, you're done. And it was also, it's fun to tell these stories to an audience, people who care about business. So my CFO was like, well, you know, you have to come up, like you're done.
Right.
Because you're done. And I had 3 employees and like, we were all like very teary on a Zoom call.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to hang up now. And then I looked around the office and there was a camera in the office because we've been training comedians virtually or on, you know, so I had a camera, but I didn't have a light. And I was like, okay, I'm going to get a light and we're going to live stream what we do starting on Monday for free. We'll just invite all our clients with their caregivers. Everyone will come on and we'll do like interactive comedy with them.
Right.
So to help with the isolation.
Right.
And so that's exactly what we did. And it was called Lunchtime Laughter. And we ran it Monday through Friday from 12 to 12:30. It was free. So I definitely took a hit. I was definitely taking a hit on it.
Sure,
but
of course.
But very quickly, lots of people who were perfectly lucid were showing up because of the isolation was transferable from the disease, a disease that causes isolation to a COVID pandemic that caused global isolation.
Right.
And then from there, I developed corporate programming because there was so much being written in the Harvard Business Review, the Atlantic, Forbes about the desperate need that HR people were having to keep people connected and how could they do that? So I took everything that we were doing in our Lunchtime Laughter and I was like, well, this could work for corporate teams. Let's just get them in the room, talking to each other, laughing. We'll run them through games. It'll be really structured so they know that they're safe. And so that was 2 years ago. And that's a lot of what we do. We have 400 clients internationally, Fortune 500 companies. I got a grant from Jane Walker, which is like the Johnny Walker, we're trying to get women to drink scotch fund, which is awesome.
I love that.
So, and I get a lot of coaching through them. And now we're just at a point where like, it's like another inflection point of like, okay, people are going now in person. So they're trying to figure out, well, do we want virtual? And a lot of them have to do virtual because a lot of companies are either hybrid or they've gone fully remote. Yeah. It's cheaper. So, so I'm doing my first in-person event for Bristol Myers in 2 weeks.
Oh, wow.
It's me and a comedian, we're flying in. Now it's 5 times as expensive. What can I tell you? You got to fly people. We're in person, like it's expensive, but it's a lot of the conferences really want it. So, so at this point, we're going to be like a hybrid company. Like we'll come in person, we'll do it virtually. We can do it. We're virtual and you're in a conference room. We've done that really successfully already. So it definitely works. And, you know, I've been lucky that I think we were successful in that first to market idea because we were recently in the New York Times as like a mental health comedy company in the mental health space. Yeah. And there just is no competition for that very tiny piece of the market. So
there's some great planets in alignment for a lot of this for you, you know, even when the hits would come and the obstacles, and it's still, you kept getting another
every time.
Yeah.
Every time I'm like, you know what, I'm done. Like we just got a SBA loan and that was very hard to get, by the way. They don't make it easy.
No. Yeah.
But we got it. And so we have a lifeline for another
Right.
6 months
Right.
because we're just about breaking even. Like I have a staff and there's so many expenses that go into running a business, particularly in California.
Yes.
Now we have the new Cal Savers issue where you got to pay people, you have to set up retirement plans for people. So
Yeah.
expensive to do, but
It's expensive to run a business in California.
But we're hanging in there. And as you said, like every time I'm just like, no, I can't, we're done. We just got LinkedIn as a client. So it's like, really, you're done? Because you just got LinkedIn. So just relax. Like,
So let me ask you this. What are some tips that you would now give to somebody that has an idea for a business and they're just kind of in the feeling it out stage? They're not sure. What would be something that you would advise a woman in particular for that? If they think it's a good idea, but like you weren't sure, you thought, oh, who's gonna, where would you have them go? How would you have them explore that?
Well, I would definitely explore the demand for whatever it is you want to do. Like Google's a great resource. Find out who else is doing it and why what you want to do is just a little bit different than that thing that everybody's doing already. Because again, you need to find your competitive edge. What's your secret sauce? They love that expression.
Right.
And I would work with a coach, someone like you. Like I would, I have a coach that I've worked with who has tons of experience in corporate sales and corporate seminars and all that. She's been incredibly helpful in helping me develop my curriculum. It would be, if you can afford it, get a really enthusiastic assistant.
Yeah.
Like a smart, enthusiastic assistant who cares about what you're doing. My right-hand person is a comedian who cares about making a difference in the world. And I was running trainings and she showed up just as a comedian to work for Laughter on Call. And she approached me and said, I've been looking for a way out of the restaurant business. And is there any way that I could come work for you? And I was like, yes, in fact, there is. Like that's what you want. You want people who are hungry and care about what you're doing. I'm blessed because if people are if it's like just a day job where they're just like, I'll help you out. You're not going to get the results that I think a solopreneur needs, because maybe it's just me, but there are days where you're like, oh no, I gotta go drive away.
Right.
And so if you have someone that you're accountable to, it's very, very helpful. So I think that's a good one. Probably again, like a community of entrepreneurs, finding other like-minded individuals.
Yeah.
And I think also getting real about what your level of commitment is to whatever it is. Is it just like, I want to make donuts that have organic frosting? Maybe, but really, how badly do you want it?
I like that you went with the donut reference too. I
yes, darling.
Those are such great pieces of advice. And I will tell you that, and I've said this before, that if somebody comes to you saying they want to work with you and you like them and they're smart and they're good, find things for them to do. If that means you have to work twice as hard to bring in twice as much business to pay them for the hours to keep them there, then do that. Because finding somebody trustworthy, smart, energetic, enthusiastic, creative, loyal, all of those things, you get that person through your door, you do whatever you have to keep them.
Absolutely. That's so key. That's so key.
And so just to kind of focus a little bit on putting together a pitch deck and asking for funding.
Mhm.
What have you found to be, are there some basic guidelines for putting together a pitch deck that are fairly kind of universal in format, or what expectations are?
Yeah, I mean, it shouldn't be more than 12 slides.
Okay.
And you just want to set up the problem, the solution. I mean, you can Google this and they're pretty basic.
Yeah.
There's some guy who has, like, cornered the market on the 11 slides, and he's not hard to locate.
Okay.
But you'll get a lot of opinions. We've gotten a lot of, in fact, we have a meeting at 4:00 today with someone who's been an advisor, and you have to, to me, it seems kind of basic now, like the problem, the solution, the market, where you see yourself, how you distinguish yourself within that market, and then your projected sales, and then kind of statistics to support, for instance, the mental health space, mental wellness, corporate mental wellness. They're spending $52 billion on this. So,
Yeah.
if you get 2% of that market, you're going to be fine.
Yeah.
And so that's what you want to establish, that there's demand.
Okay. Right.
And I think those are the most important things, and then you have to be able to sell it. Like, part of why Laughter on Call has done as well as it has within a short period of time is it's a great story.
Yeah.
Like, people want the story. Most people want the story, even in corporate.
Yep.
They will, if I say the company was created for my mother who struggled with Alzheimer's, 90% of the time, they're like, oh, could you say that at the top? I think people really like that. And then the other 10% are lawyers. Lawyers do not want to hear about how you came from a business that dealt with people that didn't have their brain together. That's not anything that they don't want to be associated with that. But everyone else.
Yes, everybody wants a good story. That's important. I know that's true.
Yeah. And it's how like your passion for teaching kids in the water safely and lovingly, I couldn't sell it the way you can.
Right.
I think it's a great idea. I support it. My kid went to you, but I'm not going to sell it the way you're going to sell it, because you really care.
Yeah.
I think that's what also you have to ask yourself. Like, do I really care about this? Like, I continue 3 years. I mean, I've written 2 books about laughter out of the clubs and into your life. It saved my marriage. Like, I really believe in this. So it makes it, I'm very good selling it, because I'm not selling it. I'm like, you don't want to laugh, I guess it's on you. Like, we've had people, we've had, communities say, this is not for us, or like, we'll do outreach on LinkedIn and they'll say, no, not for us. And I'm like, well, that's so too bad for you. Like, I'm so sorry for you that this is not for you. I don't think, oh, I'm wrong. I'm wrong. I don't think that.
I completely agree. And it definitely, I think what you're saying has become known as, what's your why? Right. That's what it's turned into through the Simon Sinek phenomenon. But it really can be distilled down to, what do you care about? Do you care about this? What's the backstory on it? Why do you care about this? So, because sometimes it's hard to convey what's the concept of your why, but in fact, it's, why do you care about it? That's what it means.
Yes.
So that's how we can phrase it too. That's how I can offer it up to people, which is, why do you care about this? Why is that important to you? Why should it be important to other people, not just you?
Yes. And frankly, if it's affected a family member in some way, it makes it that much more compelling.
Sure, of course.
Personal and passionate. People just get hooked because they can relate to it, because they identify, they put themselves in your position. And so.
I mean, listen, I would eat a donut that had toxic materials on it. I wouldn't even care, it's a donut. But I'm sure to other people, donuts with organic frosting might be really
Right.
Right?
And in that Jane Walker group that I'm in, like there's such an array of like what I would think, like, really, you're gonna make perfume with flowers you pick in a field in New Hampshire? Okay. Okay. I guess you really care about,
Yeah.
and you have the passion and the drive to do that. Okay.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know,
And it's a lot of that. I think for women more than men, it comes from a personal story, a personal passion, something
Mhm.
that they've done well through their life that they can rely on to create business out of,
Mhm.
as opposed to following a business format or formula for something.
Yeah. I mean, I think another thing to consider is scale and scope. Like, what do you really want to do? Like, I remember when I first started, I had a very big vision right from the top.
Mhm, mhm.
And because when I saw the effect it had on my mother, I was like, well, wait a minute. Like this
Yeah,
isn't staying in LA. Like, are you kidding me?
yeah.
But I remember going to an LA networking group and somebody saying something to me like, well, this will be just so lovely for Southern California, and I was like, what are you okay, yeah, I know it will. Like they had no idea,
Yeah.
because for some people there were like web designers there who like wanted to build a nice clientele in Southern California
Mhm,
and
mhm.
have that, but I obviously was motivated by something like changing the conversation,
Yeah, right, right.
um, which whatever is maybe grandiose. Some days I feel more successful at that than others,
Yep.
but knowing what, the scope of what you want to do.
Yeah. That's a great clip, Dani. It was so perfect. I want to end on
Oh,
that. Thank you, Dani, for the time. I love you. Hold on.
love you.